Can you give us some examples of what you have seen and how this law works?
Sure. Let me start by just saying that this isn't just a San Diego problem, it's across the state. There's another example of someone that received mental health diversion. A woman was getting her car worked on at a auto body shop. And the person that would later become a defendant showed up, started talking to her, and got her phone number, wanted to invite her out on a date, and she was friendly with him at the auto body shop and then thought differently about it and rebuffed him, at which point he began to stalk her and threaten to kill her and rape her and do a whole series of things to this otherwise stranger. And he had met her just before Valentine's Day. The court granted mental health diversion on that particular case.
What was his mental illness? Did he say he has a mental illness?
He did. He had a mental illness of post-traumatic stress disorder. So the court had to presume that the mental health disorder was somehow related to the stalking, which is very difficult
to disprove that. And it's on the court, on you guys, on the district attorneys to disprove that this is not connected.
Correct.
So then as a result of it, this criminal, somebody that's committed a crime, he will go home. Right?
He will go home. And
he might stalk again the victim.
He doesn't. The victim, the message to the victim is that what happened to them doesn't matter. And in stalking in particular, that's a crime that's very personal. And because of all of these presumptions that the legislature has put into the system and really removed the discretion, courts don't feel like they can actually examine and sort of peel away the onion and look at it and say, does this make sense? Do
they connect with each other, the mental illness and the crime? So they're just going and saying, he has mental illness, he committed a crime, then therefore it's okay, right? Therefore they should get diversion.
They should, and if they meet these other conditions, and that includes, will the person come in and say, I'll waive time. So yes, I'll waive time for my jury if I get this. Will I comply? Yes, I want mental health diversion. Is there an unreasonable risk of danger to the community? Well, if you ask the victim of the stalking, she'll say yes, but that isn't what the legal standard is. The legal standard is, will this person commit a super strike, meaning rape, murder, use of a weapon of mass destruction? It's that level of crime that allows somebody to do it.
So Matthew, from what you're saying, essentially a big number of criminals, whoever that has a potential mental health background, which it's a big category, right? It's
correct, yes.
So essentially, anybody that has had those kind of diagnoses in the last 5 years, committing a crime could get a pass.
And potentially diagnosed not by a psychologist, not by a psychiatrist, but by a therapist, a social worker, potentially because the definition of mental health professional is very, very broad. It isn't limited to a psychiatrist. So potentially it could be a social worker could diagnose you with having had that type of addiction. Most of the time it would be a bipolar, meaning you're both manic, which is, or depressed, and you're sort of high or low, or substance abuse disorder. So all substance, if you're addicted to methamphetamine, potentially you would qualify for a mental health diversion. I think there's a very broad category of substance abuse disorders, or what we call dual diagnosis, which is both a substance disorder as well as a mental health disorder. And the substance abuse disorder is a mental health disorder, but they're slightly, they're both contained within the DSM.
So from what you're saying, a lot of cases could go through this.
Yes.
As long as they're not murder, rape, and weapon of mass destructions, a lot of cases could be...
Attempted murders, stalking, assault on your spouse, assault on a police officer, if you're shooting a gun from a vehicle, all of those things potentially you are eligible or you wouldn't be excluded. In fact, throughout the state, there are people that have received mental health diversion for almost all of those offenses.
So essentially criminals, and I'm not encouraging this, but criminals could go to a psychiatrist and get diagnosed and then go start committing crime and get out of it.
Well, I can't say that we've seen that. Is that a possibility? I hope not. I really hope not. And I don't think we should diminish the reality that there is a mental health crisis and the intersection between criminal conduct and mental health disorders is real. The problem is in the details. And so there
is the fact that you have to prove that the mental disorder is connected to the crime. If that was in the discretion of the judges, it will solve this problem.
That is a big piece of the puzzle. Giving discretion back to the court is a huge piece of the puzzle. And one of the places to do it, if the court had the ability to actually require a defendant to prove that they were suitable, that they had a treatment plan that would actually treat mental disorder and that it was appropriate for this defendant, that would increase public safety. That would address the mental health aspect of it. But courts right now are not required to do that. But that is one area, if they could ask those questions about the treatment program and how the treatment relates to the mental illness, that would go a long way.
Now, what about the public defenders? What are their thoughts on this?
The public defenders are not being bad actors by bringing mental health diversion.
They have to do it, right? That's what
they
part
have
of
to
their...
do it, and they've been incentivized to do it. They've been incentivized to throw it to the court, even if they question whether or not there's a link between the mental illness and the crime, or even if they think that the treatment plan might not address what the mental disorder is, or they don't have a treatment plan, which was one of the cases that we had in San Diego where the public defender came in and said, we don't have a treatment plan, and the court nonetheless said it's an abuse of discretion not to grant mental health diversion.
So they still got that.
They still got it. So they're not being bad actors. They are acting within the system. They're doing what the system is pushing them to do, which...
Because otherwise they wouldn't be doing a good job as a public defender,
They
right?
wouldn't be. Their role is to focus on their client. We leave it to the legislature to consider holistically this process. And that's what's so disappointing about the way that mental health diversion came to be.